Welcome back to True Crime Pulse, the podcast where you get crime stories worldwide. Today's story takes us to Wilmington, Delaware, where the brutal death of a couple took place unexpectedly. The streets were deserted, the soft glow of streetlights casting long, eerie shadows. Inside their elegant home, Joe and Olga Connell were settling in for the night, unaware that danger lurked just beyond their doorstep. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A sudden noise broke the silence. A struggle followed. Fear gripped the air. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, it was already too late. What first appeared to be a simple home invasion, a robbery gone wrong, quickly unraveled into something far darker. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered chilling clues. This wasn't random. Someone had carefully planned this attack. Who would want Joe and Olga dead? And why? The truth would stun everyone who thought they knew the couple. Joe came from a close-knit, affluent family. As the middle child, he shared his life with an older brother, John, and a younger sister, Kelly. Like most siblings, they bickered in childhood, but their parents' divorce changed everything. Rather than drift apart, the three became fiercely united. They remained with their mother, who later remarried a kind and supportive man. Their blended family thrived in a peaceful neighborhood, where school, work, and evening dinners brought them closer together. Joe, always disciplined and determined, was focused on his studies and career, but he also had a lively social side. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming a business owner. Thanks to his sharp mind and relentless drive, that dream came true. With his best friend, Christopher Rivers, he launched a machine shop and a niche store in Tullyville. Their success was a testament to hard work and ambition. Two young men built something from the ground up, earning respect as local entrepreneurs and admired friends. Joe had never rushed into relationships, but that changed when he met Olga, a captivating Russian woman he connected with online. Their conversations revealed shared values and mutual understanding. Olga was navigating a divorce and had recently moved to the U.S. Joe opened up about his own past and future hopes. Their bond deepened quickly. He soon realized he couldn't imagine life without her, and proposed. Olga said yes. There was one minor detail. She had yet to meet his family, but Joe had no concerns about their acceptance. When she was introduced, her beauty and charm won everyone over. Even the most skeptical relatives were won over. They were amazed someone had managed to break through Joe's fiercely independent nature. Their love moved swiftly. Joe was proud to show her off, took her everywhere, and introduced her to all his friends. However, beneath Olga's soft exterior was a fierce Siberian spirit, fiery and unstoppable. Her energy and strength surprised those around her. Joe, deeply in love, began planning their wedding with urgency, as if sensing time wasn't on their side. Some people, they say, are always in a hurry to live. The investigation began with a storm of questions. After the attack, police scrambled to understand what had happened. Witnesses, neighbors, and bystanders were interviewed. No one had seen the actual shooting, but many heard gunshots and ran for safety. Some reported hearing loud male voices, arguing moments before the violence erupted. Forensic teams found multiple shell casings from two different weapons, not far from the crime scene, confirming more than one shooter. The number of bullets fired pointed to a calculated, merciless execution. Surviving such a brutal ambush was nearly impossible. It soon became evident that the attackers had been lying in wait, anticipating Joe and Olga's return. Earlier that evening, the couple had been at a lively bar, celebrating a birthday with friends and Joe's family. They spent the night laughing, dancing, and enjoying themselves until midnight before deciding to head home. As they parked and approached their house, their assailants struck at just the right moment. The investigation quickly moved to interviewing the families of the victims. Officers sat down with Joe's mother and stepfather, searching for any hint of motive. Did Joe or Olga have enemies? Had there been threats or unresolved conflicts? The grieving parents were baffled. As far as they knew, the couple had no known adversaries. Still, detectives were aware that success and happiness often breed jealousy. Just because no one spoke of conflict didn't mean none existed. As they dug deeper, a surprising detail emerged. Joe and his sister Kelly had argued the night before his wedding. At the center of their dispute was a valuable family heirloom, an ornate diamond ring appraised at $20,000. The disagreement caused a visible strain between them, though relatives were quick to insist that Kelly would never do anything violent. Strangely, the ring was still on Olga's finger after the attack, leaving investigators to wonder if the rift had truly been resolved. Even more curious, Kelly was among the first people to arrive at the crime scene that night, despite living in a different neighborhood. Her timely appearance raised suspicions. Detectives had to consider the possibility that lingering resentment may have played a role. But how did the ring end up with Olga in the first place? Joe and Olga had planned their wedding in the Virgin Islands, and the only hiccup in their preparations involved the engagement ring. According to family tradition, the heirloom was meant to pass from mother to son for use in marriage. However, the ring had already been given to Kelly for her own wedding 10 years earlier. Wanting to honor tradition without sparking conflict, Joe devised a clever workaround. He secretly reclaimed the ring, replaced the real diamonds with zirconium, and returned it to Kelly without her noticing. The authentic diamonds were then reset into Olga's ring. It was a calculated move to preserve family harmony, but it ultimately backfired. Kelly eventually discovered the switch and was livid. When she confronted Joe, he dismissed her anger, accusing her of trying to ruin the wedding. Deeply hurt, Kelly refused to attend the ceremony, citing work as an excuse. Still, she didn't stay silent. Instead, she sent Olga a cryptic, sarcastic message that exposed the truth about the ring. That message was the spark that ignited a bitter feud between the siblings, filled with tension, resentment, and blame. Joe and Olga, meanwhile, began married life in the Virgin Islands, enjoying their honeymoon with yacht excursions, beach adventures, and fine dining. Financially secure, they lived in luxury. Joe's business was booming, bringing in close to $1 million annually. Upon returning home, they celebrated their new life by purchasing a sleek $100,000 Mercedes convertible. But Olga wasn't content with being just a housewife. Armed with intelligence, fluency in English, and experience in the stock market, she quickly became an invaluable part of Joe's growing enterprise. Under Olga's leadership, the business flourished, attracting a wave of new clients. But just a week before the deadly attack, something disturbing occurred: a break-in at their home. While Joe and Olga were at work, an unknown intruder stole jewelry and treasured family heirlooms. Strangely, the infamous diamond ring remained untouched on Olga's finger. When the couple returned, they immediately realized their home had been violated. Police responded quickly, but there were no signs of forced entry or any substantial evidence. The absence of leads prompted detectives to suspect an inside job, and naturally, suspicion turned toward Kelly. Some speculated she had orchestrated the burglary as revenge for the ring. Before investigators could pursue that theory, however, tragedy struck. Joe and Olga were murdered in a brutal attack. When questioned, Kelly appeared heartbroken. She cooperated fully and even shared her text exchanges with Joe. In one message, Olga accused Kelly of orchestrating the robbery. Kelly strongly denied any role. Though visibly grieving, she felt the weight of being treated as a suspect. Yet nothing in the evidence pointed directly to her. Throughout repeated interrogations, her statements remained consistent, and she never wavered. At the funeral, her grief was palpable. She had loved her brother deeply, and the loss devastated her. As detectives expanded their scope, they began exploring other possible motives. Joe was a prosperous businessman, and Olga was a striking woman. Jealousy was a potential factor. Could someone from their past have carried a grudge powerful enough to turn lethal? That line of inquiry quickly stalled. Joe's ex-girlfriends had moved on peacefully, and Olga had cut ties with her Russian ex-husband long ago. The idea of someone crossing an ocean for revenge seemed unlikely. With few promising leads, detectives kept digging. Attention soon turned to Kelly's husband, Garrett. Known for his fierce loyalty to his wife, some wondered whether he might have acted on her behalf. When questioned, Garrett was calm and compliant. He offered a solid alibi and defended Kelly's innocence. But during the interview, he cast suspicion on Joe's wealth, hinting that it wasn't earned through legitimate business. He suggested Joe had been involved in illegal dealings, possibly drug distribution. Detectives were skeptical at first, but as they probed further, Others echoed similar suspicions. Confidential sources claimed Joe had quietly built his fortune by selling steroids. The investigation shifted toward Joe's closest friend and business partner, Christopher Rivers. While many mourned, Chris seemed unfazed, burying himself in work. As co-owner, he had to keep operations running, but his calm demeanor raised questions. When questioned, Chris explained he had been invited to the wedding, but couldn't attend due to work. His comments about Joe, however, were blunt. He claimed Joe had changed, becoming increasingly unethical. Chris also made startling allegations about Olga, suggesting ties to the Russian mafia and a strategic marriage to expand their reach in the U.S. If true, it could explain the couple's sudden wealth. But were these facts or malicious rumors? Investigators knew they had to verify every claim. A closer examination of Joe's past uncovered troubling details. Years before he met Olga, Joe had been arrested for possessing an illegal firearm and even served time behind bars. While incarcerated, he formed ties with individuals deeply entrenched in the criminal world. As investigators followed this thread, a notorious drug dealer named Harry Cook came forward with disturbing information. He claimed that Chris Rivers had often spoken negatively about Joe, accusing him of skimming profits from a secret business they ran together, illegally selling medical substances through an auto parts store. According to Cook, Chris was drowning in debt while Joe flaunted a lavish lifestyle, fueling a deep resentment. Chris had reportedly joked about wanting Joe dead, but those words took a darker turn when he allegedly asked Cook if he'd help eliminate him. Cook refused, disturbed by the request. With this revelation, Chris was no longer seen as just a mourning friend. He had a motive. Detectives ramped up their questioning, but Chris maintained an alibi backed by home surveillance footage. Still, authorities weren't convinced and began probing his financial records. Forensic experts discovered large sums of money unaccounted for. Surprisingly, none of the discrepancies directly implicated Joe. Informants added another layer of concern. Chris was battling a worsening drug addiction, leading to erratic behavior and minor thefts. He'd even begun telling friends he believed someone was targeting him. More damning evidence soon surfaced. Chris had been secretly involved in the illegal steroid trade, a fact Joe never knew. Focused on his marriage and business, Joe remained blind to the growing hostility in his closest friend. Investigators then analyzed Chris's phone activity from the night of September 23rd. While security footage showed him at home, his phone told another story. Frequent calls had been made and deleted. Forensic technicians recovered the erased data, revealing repeated contact with a man named Joshua, a former FBI informant. When questioned, Joshua admitted to ongoing conversations with Chris and more. He revealed Chris had offered him $65,000 to orchestrate Joe's murder. The payout was too tempting, and Joshua didn't want direct involvement. Instead, he outsourced the job to two hired killers, Dominic Benson and Aaron Thompson, giving them a $5,000 down payment from Chris's money. The chilling truth had finally begun to surface. Joe and Olga were not the victims of a random burglary or a tragic case of mistaken identity. Their deaths were the result of a cold, calculated plan carried out by someone they trusted completely. For a long time, investigators believed the motive was simple: jealousy, resentment, and the desire to gain full control of a growing business. Chris Rivers, Joe's longtime friend and business partner, appeared to have been pushed over the edge by personal struggles and envy. But as detectives dug deeper, the truth revealed something far more sinister: a plan rooted in greed, desperation, and betrayal. Years before Joe met and married Olga, he and Chris had taken a major step to protect their business. They secured a life insurance policy in both their names. The terms were straightforward. If one of them died, the other would receive a substantial payout, enough to clear any outstanding debts, keep the auto parts shop running, and provide a financial cushion during a difficult time. It was a smart move for two entrepreneurs trying to secure their future, but no one predicted how that decision would one day lead to murder. At the time the policy was created, Joe was single, and Chris stood to gain the full amount should anything happen to his partner. But when Joe married Olga, everything changed. According to the law, a spouse becomes the legal beneficiary, overriding business agreements. That meant the entire payout would now go to Olga, leaving Chris with nothing. This twist became the turning point, the moment when Chris began to see Joe and Olga not as partners or family, but as obstacles in the way of a fortune. Faced with mounting debts, a collapsing reputation, and growing paranoia, Chris crafted a brutal solution. If both Joe and Olga were out of the picture, the insurance money would eventually circle back to him. He would reclaim financial control, eliminate personal and professional threats, and walk away with enough money to rebuild his life. It was a ruthless idea, but Chris was no longer thinking clearly. Addiction had clouded his judgment, and greed had consumed whatever friendship or loyalty he once felt. On the night of the murders, phone records showed multiple encrypted messages and calls between Chris and the hired hitmen. Surveillance footage that initially cleared him now raised red flags. He appeared distracted, nervous, and constantly checking his phone. Investigators could tell he was monitoring the operation in real time, growing increasingly anxious as it unfolded. As the investigation expanded, detectives tracked down Joshua, a former FBI informant who had acted as the middleman in the murder-for-hire plot. Joshua did not resist arrest. In fact, he seemed relieved. In exchange for a lighter sentence, he shared every detail of Chris's plan, from the initial conversation where Chris offered him $65,000 to kill Joe, to the moment he handed over $5,000 as an advance for the job. But Joshua didn't want to carry out the murder himself. Instead, he subcontracted the hit to two others, Aaron Thompson and Dominic Benson. Yet Chris's evil plan didn't stop with murder. In an effort to cover his tracks, he devised a way to mislead investigators by framing Joe's sister, Kelly. Days before the killings, Chris instructed Joshua to stage a burglary at Joe and Olga's home. The target was a valuable family heirloom, an antique diamond ring passed down through generations. Chris's goal was to make it look like Kelly, who had a known strained relationship with Olga, had stolen the ring out of jealousy or revenge. If successful, this would have redirected suspicion away from Chris and onto someone else, while he quietly collected the insurance money and disappeared from scrutiny. But the plan was too complex, and Chris had underestimated the investigators. Every lie, every false trail, and every deleted message only brought more attention to his role. Slowly but surely, the pieces fell into place. In 2014, after months of gathering evidence and building their case, law enforcement formally charged Christopher Rivers. The charges included 2 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of murder, and possession of firearms during the commission of a felony. His co-conspirators faced their own legal battles. Aaron Thompson, who pulled the trigger, was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 45 years without the possibility of parole. Dominic Benson, who backed out at the last moment but still participated in the planning, was convicted of conspiracy and aiding criminals and received 5 years in prison. Joshua, the man who coordinated the killing and later turned informant, received a lighter sentence, 5 years for conspiracy to commit murder, thanks to his full cooperation. As for Chris, he was found guilty on all counts. The jury saw through his lies and manipulation. He was sentenced to 2 life terms, plus 50 additional years. He would never walk free again. Joe had built a successful business from the ground up. He had found love with Olga, and together they looked forward to building a future filled with family and stability. But all of that was taken away in a single night, destroyed by a man Joe had once called his best friend. Chris's betrayal was complete. Not just the act of murder, but the cold planning, the framing of an innocent sister, and the manipulation of others to do his dirty work. In the end, Chris Rivers lost everything: his freedom, his reputation, and the only real relationships he had left. His hunger for money and control cost 2 innocent people their lives. Now, he will spend the rest of his days behind bars, haunted by the consequences of his greed and the irreversible damage he caused. Thank you for listening to True Crime Pulse. Share your thoughts on the story, and like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next episode, when we bring you more crime stories, stay vigilant.